want to be a side chick. What's that all about? Waiting on the sidelines, my mind all filled with doubt. Why am I in this? What is this all for? It's getting way too difficult. Now it's time to close the door. I don't want to be your side boo, waiting around until you decide to give me the attention I'm due, hiding us away from the woman who is obviously the one to whom your love is true. I mean, you would never leave her for me, would you? I refuse to be there because you can't even care for two women at once, can you? All this ducking and diving, dodging and conniving, it's got me questioning. What do you expect me to do? It's complicated, I know. That's what you always say. Well, there's no more complication in my life as of today. It's too hard hanging around, tiptoeing, not making a sound in case I disrupt your harmony. I mean, do you even really love me? Well, this love I can't see. It doesn't matter what you say to me. I know I'm not a priority. It's always been your wife and your family. So now I'm going to bow out gracefully and maintain my dignity because I know there is so much better out there for me. I won't let myself be used, my emotions slowly abused to ease your ego however bruised and leave my mind all confused. I don't want to be your side chick. No, not anymore. I want to save my heart from breaking and feeling so sore. I've had enough of all these games and tricks. It's too difficult to withstand. I can't carry on with you like this, so I'm letting go of your hand. That hand I loved holding when we walked down the street, hearing people making comments that we looked really sweet. I mean, they never knew we weren't officially together. And those were good times, it's true, but I deserve much better. I don't want to be your side boo. I can't, because I'm too into you. You don't tell me that you love me, I can even understand why. But I'll tell you that I love you. It doesn't matter now, it's goodbye. I want you to want me the way that I want you. Perhaps in the depth of your heart you do, but I know one thing is true. I cannot stay your side chick or your side boo, because I deserve to be loved with a complete love too.
To my lover, who wiped my tears when I cried, like he was my mother. To my lover, who sheltered me from their tongues and hurtful words, like she was my father. Shielded me from blows that the others will throw, like he was my older brother. Relieved me of the heavy weight of my confessions, like she was a Catholic priest, my lover. Who found the energy to expose my pent-up emissions, like how one would suck the venom from a snake bite. They say we should never. My blood turned blue. My lover whose heart beats always true. I love you how I do. I miss you much these days. I truly do. To you, my lover, who stole kisses when we knew it was taboo, unzipping zips and doing sensuous things as lovers often do. Intoxication, because I could smell the scents of you. Becoming one. Oh, becoming one with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we just had some love points, and you are on Bookplate. Welcome to today's edition of Bookplate on AKADi Magazine. It's a month of love. We are in February, and what better way to celebrate it than to have a Bookplate edition with the expression of love. Today, two distinguished guests, very creative in their area of craft. I'll give them the chance to introduce themselves. So I think ladies first.
Okay, so my name is Sharon Essie. I go by the name of La Poésie. It's French for poetry, but you know, it's a word play on my name. And I am a teacher by trade, but I'm a poet in the night. Nice. Okay. Nice having you here, Lucy. And then?
My name is Abdulaziz, a Kantamaklo, but everybody else knows me as Siali. I'm a poet, graphic artist, I'm the creative director for Tribe. It's an NGO that advocates for autoimmune diseases. And what else? Sorry, I tend to forget stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so if you want to know more about Dele, check out AKADi Magazine's issue 7 and you will know everything about him. Okay, so what do you guys term as poetry, if one may ask?
I'll let you tell us from an academic perspective. No, just that, yes. Are you a teacher? Because she's a teacher. Okay,
I
so
teach languages.
in poetry.
English.
I think poetry is when something makes sense in how it reaches you. So when words make sense, and it's beautiful when you hear it, and it tends to draw certain emotions from you. Once that connection clicks, I think that is poetry. Because you can find poetry in music, you can find poetry in art. And if you are thinking about the academic definition of poetry, you will not see that in the things I just mentioned. So once it makes sense, once it clicks, once it draws out certain emotions, or it empowers you to become something that you need to become, I think that's poetry. For me, that's what poetry is.
Yeah, I mean, it's very different to prose, where you're kind of just looking at normal everyday speech. Some poetry can come across as a normal everyday speech, and that's the beauty of poetry, is that you can express it in so many diverse ways. You can use wordplay, you can create images, and pictures is not just your normal general everyday conversation. For me, it's a way that I express myself when I need to sometimes purge my emotions, rather than go and tell somebody, I will put it down on paper, and it's cathartic, it lets me release, and it helps. I also find it as a way to kind of think through my emotions, think through situations, and generally by the end of me writing a poem, there's a bit of an encouragement. So if somebody else listens to it, like Zeli was saying, they will find something to relate to, something to connect to, and that in turn will encourage them and remind them that they're not alone in this sort of situation, that they can relate to.
Yeah, you did speak about expression. So why not any other way of expression, like prose but poetry?
For me,
Yes, too. I think so.
for me, I think because poetry gives you that avenue to be creative, much more creative. Like I said, you can paint images with your words. The word order doesn't have to be specific. You can play around with things, and so it makes it much more animated, much more interesting. And because emotions are not always logical, using poetry in that sense, I think, fits better, because again, you can express yourself in so indirectly but directly at the same time, if you know what I mean. So.
It was easier for me. It's the easiest avenue immediately for me. I could think things, I could think scenarios, I could think situations, and I could express them, I could bend them, and I could, in a sense, when I was creating, I was God. And so I can push it and pull it. And I could easily do that without the cost of other creative ventures of expression. If I was a painter, I used to paint. If I was a painter, I'll have to buy material, I'll have to buy supply. And it demands cost immediately. But as a poet, I'm thinking it's all in my mind. The threads I'm going to use to weave are all in my mind. And so I can weave whatever fabric I dream about, and then take it apart and then create something totally different with the same ideas.
Okay. instead of like writing it out in maybe like a story or something, the poem comes like easily to you?
Yes, it's funny you should say that. Yes, and it's funny you should say that. I've tried writing short stories, and anybody I'd given it to said, "Oh, this is a nice poem." I try to avoid that.
Yeah.
So yes, I
So
agree
now,
with you.
okay.
I think especially.
All right. Okay. How, at what stage did you discover you were a poet?
I was in JSS 2, I think. I was in the Writers and Debaters Club. We had an assignment to turn in a poem on the next meeting. So I wrote a poem. I think it was about a fisherman on the lake, I can't remember what it was. And then got to class, submitted my poem. No, before I submitted my poem, I showed my poem to the boys, my seniors. Okay. And so they were like, did I write it? I said yes. So I should write their poem for them because they didn't write it. So I took their papers and I wrote their poem. I wrote, I think, 4 poems there. At that time, I wasn't really thinking of anything about what was happening. You know, I was just doing for them because they asked me and I could. Till we submitted our poems and the teacher took mine and she says, "Oh, this is not my work." So I go, "How?" She says, "Oh, it's something she's seen before." Okay, I didn't response. You know, but that meant that it was so good, she felt she had seen it before.
Yeah.
You see, because I wrote it, you know. And so that's when I knew that, oh, I can write, you know. Yeah, I can write. If I was good enough in terms of doing it again and again, that would be later on. But that's when I knew that, I could write.
Okay.
Yes.
And when did you know that it was a niche? It was a niche.
For me, I think I've always been very good with language anyway. But especially when I was in secondary school, so I think maybe when I was around 11 years old or so, in some English lesson we had to write some poem. And I remember just like a line coming to my head, and from that one line came this story about a girl who was lost in a forest and a monster came out, and how at the end of it there was a moral and anyway, it was I thought it was amazing. And my teacher also thought it was good. But so there came an opportunity to do a competition where we had to write a poem about the environment, the effects of environmental destruction, etc. And I wrote something, and it was picked. It won the competition to be put into an anthology. And so that kind of gave me the confidence that you can, what you write can be published.
I told you we have distinguished guests here.
And this was 5,000 years ago.
5,000 years ago.
5,000 years
ago.
But that definitely gave me the confidence to make me think that I could do it. But then I found that there was quite a big gap between me writing things. It doesn't just come. And then and later on I started writing when emotion or something sort of takes you, But it was mainly when I realized that, I can write and I can affect people. I can affect their mood, I can influence them, I can draw them in. It was when I started really performing it. So I used to write and keep it. So I have, like this. But when I started actually performing it and hearing people's reactions to it, that's when I really knew, maybe this is something that I'm good at, and that I'm really good at, and something that I could pursue a bit more.
So that takes me to this question I wanted to ask. How do you, how does it come to you? Do you hear music and as you just get an idea? Does the creation just come together when maybe you see something and then something else clicks? Because a lot of people have different ways. Some need to go on a vacation, sit in the garden and get some dreams and then they wake up. So how have your poems come to you in the past? Is that what is that?
I was smiling because when you were asking the question, because everything you said is every way poetry has come to me. Every way.
Okay.
I mean, in conversations, I had to learn to stop to do that because I'll be talking to you, say something like, "Oh, come here." I have to write it down, you know. And then sometimes when I write it down, then it starts to speak into itself, like it gets pregnant and it's given birth. Then sometimes it takes time. Sometimes a poem can take 3 months, 6. See, I'm getting goosebumps. 6 months, 8 months, sometimes years, you know. And sometimes just a line. Okay. And so, like I said, every way you ask the question is every way I've been inspired to write. Every way I've been driven, you know, to create, you know. And so that has been my experience.
Yeah, it's a similar thing for me. It can be an experience I'm going through. It can be something somebody said. It can be something I saw. Or I remember this side chick poem that I did. It was a situation where somebody, it's like they were trying to say to me, "Be my side chick." And I was like, maybe I need to weigh up the pros and cons of being a side chick. And then with that came like a voice. It's like a voice was saying, "I don't want to be one."
Yeah.
And these are the kinds of emotions I would go through. But it's like that one line, "I don't want to be a side chick," ended up becoming a whole speech from like as if it was like something took me over and just wanted to pour out. You know, because it's not like I've been in that situation. But when I performed it, then people will come to me and say, "Oh my gosh, you spoke what I felt, you spoke what I think," you know. And I think a lot of poetry is like that for me. So yeah, I think personal experience, but sometimes it's just like that. It's just spiritual. It's like you just feel like that one line comes and it.
Oh, okay. So, in writing poetry, do you always write it to be read by others, or you write it to perform?
I think I probably wrote it, and you know, because I don't know about you, but like I have different poems are different, isn't it?
Yeah.
There are some where you feel like this one actually, nah, it's not. I can't share it, or it's not the right time, or people won't understand it the way where it's coming from. So I think in general, all the poetry that I write, it's written to be performed at some stage for others to hear. But there are some where you just guard it close to you because it's not right. Yeah, you know.
So you?
Yeah. No, because I have a couple of poems like that. They're just not ready for the public to consume.
Yes. Wow. So, Zali, how many poems have you written?
I do not know how many poems I've written, but I know that there was a time where I wrote, I bought a ring of A4, that's 500 sheets, and then I filled the ring. Yes. And then
In the span of how many years?
In the span of 2 weeks almost. Yes, I was writing every moment I could pick. And sometimes I write a myriad of poems and I sit and I can be writing one, another one will come up and I'm writing that, and then I'll be I've gone through, I've done all those things before, and I finished. And I think at that time I was nursing a broken heart. You know, there was all that, so it was not even just. No, the poems were not. You know, I think the broken heart broke the door for me. So I had to give birth. I was my water had broken. I had to.
It's water has broken.
Yeah, my water had broken.
Do you also write it to be spoken out?
In all honesty, I write to because it's an outpouring. I had to just get it out of my system. So I write to just get it out of my system, to be able to breathe. Because sometimes it's suffocation. I have to express myself. I have to get the words out, you know, because I just can't do anything else. Maybe I'm in the middle of something very important, and then the poem has come, you know, and I minded it. So you can understand. I can understand it. I minded. I have to finish.
Yeah.
You know, so it does that.